I'm joined now by the veteran voice of the Octagon, official Octagon announcer for the UFC. He's also the co-founder at Millions.co, a fan engagement platform for combat sports athletes to connect with fans, to provide paid video shout-outs, answer questions, watch live sports together via live stream, and sell merchandise. It's Bruce Buffer. And, when you're talking about fans, the UFC just had its first event at full capacity. How much different was that for you having them back in the building again?
It's amazing because we touched on it with like 2,000 fans in Abu Dhabi when Conor fought. But then we went to Jacksonville. We had 16,000 fans. And when I walked out before the show began, it was like Brazil. The 3,000 or 4,000 waiting for the first prelim went crazy. But then in Houston, they added 7,000 seats. We had 22,000 fans. And I'm always bringing it no matter what. I do these Apex shows where there's no fans, and I have to create that energy, or I want to create that energy for the fighters and the fans watching. But man, when I felt that energy coming at me in Houston, it's unbelievable. There's no way to explain it unless you're standing right beside me or you're in my shoes, because all this energy is coming at you in the Octagon, which I feed off of. I don't stand still. I'm a very passionate announcer. So you're just asking me to roar even louder and go even crazier. Whatever I do, I never know what I'm going to do till I do it.
You just mentioned Conor McGregor. He's got Dustin Poirier coming up at UFC 264. How big is that fight in your mind for Conor's UFC career going forward?
Well, it's really big. I mean, Conor's coming off his loss to Poirier, a very definitive loss, and now they're matching up again for the rubber match. And obviously, we all love it, the trifecta and the rubber match when it happens. Conor, win or lose, will continue. We know that he just was the #1 highest earning athlete in the world. His brand is so strong. His liquor company just sold for $600 million, yada, 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 more and more and more. Win or lose, Conor walks in the octagon and the arena, it's sold out, bottom line. So it all comes down to one thing. We all want to see Conor fight for all the different reasons. But the question is, does Conor want to continue to fight? Is Conor still hungry? Right now, Conor is coming across very hungry, very classy in the way he's handling himself, and properly as the role model athlete that he should be, walking around and is. And he's got to get by July 10th, and then we'll make that decision. I don't see Conor quitting fighting soon. He's a born fighter, and he'll continue to fight. And he's still in his prime. He's still in a great condition and mental attitude, no matter how many hundreds of millions of dollars he has to fall back and sleep on every night.
Yeah, he knows how to sell a fight, that's for sure. Apparently knows how to sell a whiskey company as well, as you mentioned. But, he's been in big money fights, including in boxing against Mayweather. And that was something that led to a little bit of, a controversy after Jake Paul had said that he thought that UFC fighters were underpaid relative to boxers. Do you believe that's something that is true? What are your thoughts, having been so involved in the sport, when you hear those kind of comments about fighters being underpaid?
They can make all the comments they want, but also too, I remember when people like Rampage Jackson fought for $500 at King of the Cage events, right? And then Rampage Jackson came back as an example and made somewhere estimated over $13 million with the UFC. You go to boxing events and you see undercard fighters. See some of the checks that these warriors make for themselves, where in the UFC, an undercard fighter walking in the first prelim is guaranteed $10,000 to show, $10,000 to win. Just the other night, winning $75,000 in Houston as a bonus. Okay, there's a $100,000 payday. It takes a lot for a fighter to get to that point. And if you look at the average, if I'm not mistaken, the average UFC fighter is making more than the average boxing fighter. Where the difference comes in, yes, you have Mayweather walking in. Yes, you have making 30, 40 million. Yes, you have Canelo making 37 million, whatever the case might be. It always comes down to everything in life to the top 1 or 2%. It always does. So you're always going to hear about these big purses, but hear about some of the big purses that happen in the UFC, the money that Conor's made and other people have made. In mixed martial arts, the UFC is the rocket ship going uphill, leading the way for everybody. It pays other fighters more. And then I'll give you one little other thing. If you take a small boxing promotion like Top Rank or like Golden Boy or whatever, however many employees they have, 10, 20, I'm guessing, and all the money goes into the organization. Look at the worldwide organization the UFC is and the money it takes to run this organization, to provide the hundreds, thousands of fighters around the world a way to make their money, to earn their income. It's an amazing machine. So when I hear people say that, there's always going to be examples of that. But how about talking about examples of how much money the UFC fighters do make, right? Compared to where they won't be able to make that money anywhere else, except maybe the top fighters and a few big signing instances with some of the other promotions, which are all thanking the UFC for paving the way for them. So it's the best way I can answer that question. They're making a lot of money. Are they making? I want to see all the fighters make $1 million every time they step in. That's why my co-founders and I created Millions.co. Okay, that's one of my driving forces. I want to teach these fighters how to make money aside from their purses, how to brand themselves. I don't mean to get away from your question, but it totally leads in to why we're doing Millions.co. I want the fighters to make as much money as possible.
And how does that work, and how do you get them to make that money?
Well, in organizations, let's say one of the first things is a lot of athletes, fighters, and others, and they think they got to be really popular and have a huge following, to have a T-shirt, to be able to sell a hat, to be able to say, come watch a UFC with me, and here's a little coin, $5, whatever, but you'll be with me. I'll answer your questions. We'll have like a total watch viewing party ourselves. Here's my T-shirts. Here's my hats. I'm as a fighter, a young fighter, I wouldn't know where to go have that made. I wouldn't know how to do all that kind of stuff. So we do it for them. And then the average fighter, when they're in an organization, if they get a deal for a T-shirt for that organization, usually they get like 10% of the profits. We're giving the lion's share, like 80% back to the fighters. We're making sure they're getting taken care of. And this will teach them how to build their brand, build their image, along with their following. Let's face it, social media is everything these days. How many followers? Are you an influencer? What are you building? Well, aside from answering questions and providing them with posts, how about a way to give those fighters, the fans, merchandise they would like to have of you, to be able to know more about you, to be able to be in touch with you, and monetize yourself at the same time? That's what America's all about. But the average fighter and the average athlete does not know how to do that. They're a performer. They're not a business person.
When you talk about building brands, someone who continues to build their profile is Francis Ngannou. He's just emerged as a star in the sport, right? And I think most fans wanted to see him against Jon Jones, but Dana White said he's moving on. Derek Lewis is who deserves that fight. Would it be a disappointment in your mind to not see Ngannou and Jones?
No, not a disappointment in my mind, because there's always a future, and we'll see what the future holds. I mean, listen, Dana White and the powers that be with Dana are in the business of making fights. They're in the business of making entertaining fights. If you don't think Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis, now granted, the first time they met, a little slow of a fight, whatever, Ngannou has gone on to become the heavyweight champion, and definitely an excellent, great role model as a heavyweight champion. His story should be made into a movie. Derek Lewis is one of the most entertaining fighters we have out there. Let's hope when they go at it, they're like the National Geographic, two elks coming together to smash their horns and go at it. But if you were to say, would I like to see Jon Jones fight a heavyweight? Of course. He's the greatest fighter out there, in the mixed martial arts, or one of the goats of mixed martial arts. Who does not want to see Jon Jones compete at heavyweight? I'm not the one that makes that decision. I'm the messenger, man. I'm there to roar the names for you and get them going.
You use the phrase "goat." Obviously there have been plenty of great fighters. We talked about some of them, but on the women's side of things, Amanda Nunes has dominated to such a degree where you even wonder, if there's a division there for her anymore. Aside from being the greatest women's fighter of all time, do you consider her now to be the greatest fighter of all time? Period in the Octagon.
Not the greatest fighter of all time, period. Remember, I've been in this business for 25 years. I've been in the Octagon. I celebrated anniversary last February. I get asked that question all the time. Who's the greatest fighter? I can give you examples of the greatest fighters. There's many fighters that have to be able to be respected for being the great fighters. Let's put it this way. She is the greatest female fighter of all time. No question. Her stats prove it. She'll continue to prove it. She'll stay in that division, and it's going to be very hard for anybody to take her down. But listen, we're in the fight game. This is a hurt game. Anybody can change on any given night. Anybody can win on any given night. It's been proven. You've seen it happen many, many times. Definitely one of the greatest of all time. There's a lot of greats in this business, and you just had one retire, Khabib Nurmagomedov, undefeated. I never thought there would be an undefeated fighter in the UFC, but he retired undefeated. It's a very difficult game, MMA. Very difficult.
And as difficult as it is, you'll be there to announce it when those fights go down. You also are trying to help fighters maximize their time in the spotlight with Millions.co. Bruce Buffer, really appreciate your time today.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it too, Robin. You have a great day, and everybody stay safe. I'll see you from the Octagon. We got some big shows coming up. Thanks so much. Big cheers to you.